a lot of times the most difficult journeys are the most advantageous in the long run, and you can almost count on that being the case, because when you're processing profoundly and when you're bringing a lot of stuff up, a lot of issues from your subconscious, also issues from your digestive system, from your energy system, from your neurological system, things come to the surface in the ayahuasca journey. And if you're taking, like a lot of you did last night, a full dosage, or we're talking about between a 3/4 and a full cup, that's something that you're basically asking for a very deep and profound penetration. Now, it's not that you can't get that same effect on a lighter dosage. In fact, what we generally recommend is that you begin with a moderate one, you go to a medium one, and then you try a large one. But very frequently what we do then is we trim it back to a lighter one again, and we maintain that over a long period of time. And that way we can really get the processing, the learning. Good morning, how are you, Randy?
I'm good.
Get the processing and the learning done on a steady, solid basis so that you've got something that sticks with you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome. How are you, Nick?
Sorry you're late.
No worries. I'm late too. Not very late though. So, so anyhow, so sure, when you take a larger dosage, you inevitably have a rougher kickoff phase. You know, the first 45 minutes is going to be harsher. You're going to have to hold on to your knees and just remember what I said. It's nothing to worry about. But then once you get off, usually you go through a purge. You go through some difficult phases. Now, last night a couple of you guys were asking me, well, what happens, what do you ordinarily experience in ayahuasca? So remember you were asking me that when I gave you some extra? Or somebody was, anyhow. And so what happens when you're doing a ayahuasca session is generally you go through a few phases. The medicine goes into the power chakra. That's when it's getting absorbed through the liver and the gallbladder, and when you're bringing the medicine into your body, into your energy field. The first phase is generally accompanied by a little bit of discomfort, a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of fear, and a little bit of worry. That's what we refer to as the power chakra, or the power section. That's where you're concerned principally about being in control, about having everything secure and right. And all of a sudden you're getting pushed out of your comfort zone. And you're feeling that. You're feeling a certain amount of anguish, a certain amount of fear. You're looking around and you're saying, oh my God, I'm with some really dangerous people. I don't even know where I am. What am I doing here? And stuff like that. Now, usually you go through that for about maybe 30 minutes at the very most. And then it's going to pop up into your emotional or heart chakra. And you'll start processing emotional issues, sentimental issues. You'll think about how much you love your mommy, and how much you love your daddy, and how much you love your wifey, and how much you love your kitty, and how much you love your doggy. And you think about how also how you blew that last chance, you know, because that girl that you really loved, you know, you did the wrong thing at the wrong time, and sure enough, she left you. And so you go through all the sins and all of the lost dreams and things like that. So you're processing all these emotions. So this is all a purging, basically. The first part is purging. You're purging anger, you're purging distrust, you're purging a lot of things by bringing it to the surface. Here you're purging sentimental attachments. You're purging a lot of things that bother you and that hold you back. Then it goes into the crown chakra. Now the crown chakra, or the third eye, is the solution-oriented part of our energy field. So the medicine moves from here up to here. Once it gets up here, you forget completely about the other two. It's like they don't even exist. It's like there's something that exists somewhere else. You know, you're looking from above and you say, wow, that was actually me. Is that funny little guy down there? He's all worried about stuff that doesn't give a flying fuck about him. And he's all scared about stuff that is not even there. You know, so, wow, he lives a life of total illusion. He says, I'm going to stay up here because this makes sense. And then you go through the parts of your solution-oriented search, and you find that it's easy to solve problems when you look at them from the right angle. In fact, it's very easy because the problems are mostly illusions. They're not necessarily real problems. we make things, we make situations into problems because we have a vested interest in being weak and being stupid and being sick and in being heavy and nasty and all this kind of shit. Why? Well, because that's our image of ourselves. We think of ourselves as being limited. So we act that way. Now, as soon as we change our attitude about who we are, we get a different image of ourselves, then we don't have to be such pricks anymore. We don't have to be such idiots. We don't have to act like judgmental, idiots all the time. Oh, well, I wonder if that's going to be okay or not, Oh, I don't like that, I don't feel like that. Okay, you get that all the time, But what are people doing? They're just showing that they got their head up their ass, basically, And they got it so far up there that it's a wonder they can even fucking breathe, And that's where they keep it all the time because they feel very comfortable, they feel very secure there, because it's all they've ever had, And so, well, what do? Well, we laugh at it. We make fun of it because what else can you do? That's the way you disempower things. The dark side, the devil, he cannot stand being made fun of. So when you want to get rid of him, don't try to get in a boxing match with him. Just laugh at him, make fun of him, because he'll get out of there right away because he knows he's just pulling a scam on you. He's just trying to fool you. And you never get any power unless you get it given to you. So if you can scare somebody, you're powerful. But if they're not scared of you, it's pretty disconcerting because you haven't got any power over them at all. They say, oh, wow, you got a gun. Well, it probably doesn't have any bullets in it. So why don't you just keep it? It's a nice looking little toy, And all of a sudden, you're not scared, And all of a sudden they don't even know what to do with a gun because it doesn't affect you the way they thought it would. So keep that in mind in your everyday life and also in your spiritual life because it's very important to have your focus clear and to have your highest intentions ready to be manifested. Because whatever you hold in your energy field, whenever you hold in your mind, you're going to manifest it one way or the other. Sooner or later, you're going to make it happen. Now, I heard somebody talk to me about a glass of water.
It's behind Walter there.
Oh, well, that's a good place for it.
Well,
so anyhow, and now it's nice and warm, too.
Yeah.
So anyhow, what we're doing today is we're cooking ayahuasca in the Amazon here in Refugio Altiplano, and these are optimum conditions for cooking ayahuasca. You're never going to find better ayahuasca than this. We peeled the skin off from this last night, or late yesterday afternoon. We peeled the skin off because when you take the skin off, the final brew is much sweeter. If you leave the skin on, it's more bitter. It's more difficult to drink. Then we leave it overnight like that, and then in the morning, a couple hours before we're going to cook it, we mash it up with wooden mallets, and these wooden mallets, I don't know where the wooden mallets are hidden, but at any rate, we mash it up and we open it up so that it can mesh with the chacruna. Okay, now the magic of this brew is that this is an enzyme inhibitor. Okay, this has the power to allow your body to assimilate DMT, and generally speaking, it doesn't matter how much DMT you put in your system, it's not going to assimilate because you've got an automatic guard standing there not letting it go into the blood unless you're on the verge of death. So you have a vial of DMT in your body, it has it stored there, and so when you're going to die, when you hit your head against a cement floor after falling from the 20th story, boom, okay, you've got about 2 seconds to live, and the DMT gets released into your blood, and it allows your spirit to leave your body. That's what the DMT is stored in your body for, is to allow you to exit into the eternity from your body, your physical body. And so we all have DMT in our body. It's not an illegal substance because we've got it. We've got it in our bodies all the time. But it's not going to be released except for in a very serious condition where you're dying, and you're dying quickly. Now, what we do is we fool the body into letting us go into that area beyond death by putting the guard to sleep. The guard goes to sleep, the DMT goes on by, sneaks on by, and gets in the bloodstream, and changes your consciousness and gives you an experience of eternity. It gives you an experience of going beyond death. Now, ayahuasca, haya means death. Huasca means vine. That's Quechua. Now, so it's the vine of death is ayahuasca. I don't call it the vine of death. I call it the vine of enlightenment and the vine of eternity. And so ayahuasca is a very Quechua, very Indian concept, and by listening to the language of people, you're going to see what their values are. You can see the way they think and in their character. Now, I would call this, from my perspective, the gateway to eternity. Good morning, Vladimir. How are you, buddy?
Good morning, Scott.
Good. So, we use it precisely that way, and the only way we can use it that way is because we are doing it methodically. We're doing it carefully. We're doing it with the highest quality possible material that you'll ever find. We're doing it with abundant material, and we're fixing it just exactly right. And we couldn't possibly do any better than this. We have very large quantities. Out of all of this cooking of these two pots, put in empacadas de una vez, hermano, por favor.
You said DMT storage before? Is that in the pineal gland?
I don't know. Probably. I think so. Yeah, I think that's the gland it's in. More than likely. Why don't we do a lobotomy on you and see if we can find it? But anyhow, now what we're doing is we're creating a sandwich. The reason why we put the vine in first is because the fire has got to be very hot for about 10 hours. It's got to mesh these two things. It's got to bring them together and make them one. Okay? Now, this has to be done at a very high heat, and if you put the leaves too close to the bottom, they'll burn and they'll stick to the pot, and they give a bad smell to the brew. And so this is just a very practical way of being able to take the heat really up high and making it work like a charm. And so these materials have to be meshed. Now, the idea, the story that we very often get is that this formula was originally given to the Indian people to give them a form of calling their homeland, of getting back in touch with their origins, okay? So they'll go back in touch with their origins every time they have a problem, every time they're confused, every time they're sick, every time they have an evolutionary transition to go through. It's extremely important that they have that valve open. Now, the other story that we hear frequently is that an Indian healer told the people that when he died that they should tie his body onto the tree, and out of his body will grow a vine that will teach them how to access hidden knowledge and to also solve their problems and evolve into the next phase of their lives. Very important aspect, because right now we're going into a very important part of our history as a human species, and there are going to be some serious transitions and some serious challenges up ahead of us. And so we need the power plants to guide us, to open our minds, to open our nervous systems, and to open the path forward so that we know how to adapt, how to change, and how to help other people change at the same time, and how to stay healthy through those transitions. But another interesting part of that story is that the Indian healer, that's basically a very wise man who knows how to do all kinds of special things, he said, my wife, when she dies, has to be buried in the ground next to the tree where I'm growing. And these two substances have to be mixed. They have to be boiled together at a very high heat so that they mesh, so that they become one. So that they are not two separate ones, but they come together 100%. So you cannot tell which is which. Now, when they mesh, they become much stronger than they were separately. they become a completely different brew. You take ayahuasca and you take chacruna, and you have 2 pots and you put them together, nothing. But when you fuse them at a very high heat, they're going to be great. They're going to be just what you need, and they're going to be unbelievably, unpredictably powerful. And some of you learned it at the hard way the other night. It's not uncommon that people will start with a small dosage and they'll say, this stuff isn't that strong, I'll take a full dose. Boom. What happens? Well, it basically blows them open from a number of different angles. And it certainly blows them open in their minds and in their hearts and in their bowels and also and pretty much everything else. And they're fortunate they're not spurting out of the ears too. You know, that's what I'm waiting to see. I was in there one night. I was in there, and this guy said, "Oh no, I'm ahead. You know how to take. I know how to do acid and how to do rush it down. I'm used to altered states. So why don't you just give me a 7/8 of a cup for size?" The person said, "You sure?" I said, "I wouldn't recommend it." He says, "I dig it." I said, that's one thing that amazes me. I've directed 5,000 ayahuasca ceremonies, and people who've never done it before still come in and tell me what to do. I think it's hilarious. You know? And so, anyhow, so I said, yeah, well, if you want to take 7/8 of a cup, who am I to say no? You go ahead and take it, you know. And he didn't say, you know, what do you think it would be wise for me to do? No, he says, give me 7/8 of a cup. Okay, here's 7/8. You know, about 45 minutes on the line, he says, he's all the way across the room, right across from me. And I see him get up. He gets up like this. And then he turns around and he goes, boom. Oh, well. You know, and so he sits there and said, oh, well, I guess he's safe, you know. Doubtful that he's going to tip over, you know, because the wall's high. And he looks like he's secure. And so, I said, okay, yeah. And then I go over. I say, I got to go to the bathroom. Well, I can't walk. I said, don't worry, we'll take you to the bathroom. Calm down, it's going to be all right. And I said, take him. And just boom, 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 boom. Turn around. He sits down on the toilet. I think the whole bathroom's going to fall right through. He's a heavy guy. He hits all of his weight. And the toilet's shaking like crazy. And he's sitting there. I said, wait a second. What's the matter? He says, I got to puke now. And I said, well, here, I'll get you a bucket. He says, no, there's no time for that. And he falls down on his hands and knees. He crawls over to the next toilet and sticks his head in and he starts puking. And his pants are still down. And then my buddy Welsh walks into the room, you know, and he says, I don't want to know about this one. But why don't you tell me what you guys are doing in here? And I says, what can I say? You know, I'm just trying to, you know, help this guy out. You know, he's got these. So anyhow, the guy's there, and he can't get up from the toilet, and he says, Scott, have you got any words of wisdom for me? And because the guy's a psychologist, you know, he's a friend of mine, and I said, yeah, sure. I said, it's obvious. It's a no-brainer. You've fallen with the wrong crowd. And so, you know, he was a very loyal customer after that, you know. But he started taking half cups, and so he changed his tune just slightly. But before I got deviated with a ridiculous story, what I was going to tell you was that, what I was going to actually relate to you is that what we're doing here is an alchemical, esoteric process, which is extremely profound. What we're doing is we're meshing 2 materials, which are generally referred to in the Indian cosmology as feminine and masculine. And by fusing the feminine and the masculine, we come up with power, mystery, and wisdom. And it's only through that combination of feminine and masculine that the world moves forward, that the human psyche grows, and that we find solutions for our problems. So that's what we do. Now it's a process that's directly connected with everything you see around you. You see this whole world is flourishing because it's a combination of the two elements, feminine and masculine. And if you're going to have a measuring stick for figuring out how good a healer is, that's what you can do. You can see, okay, is he or she a good combination of feminine and masculine? And is it sufficiently well fused so that you can't tell which one is getting shown at any given moment? It might be the man, it might be the woman. You don't know. They're so together that basically they become one. And so with that, that's a creative process. When the shaman goes through his training and he learns how to assimilate his feminine side and his masculine side at a very high level, it becomes extremely difficult to read, extremely difficult to predict, because it's a mixed bag, and it's delivered spontaneously. And so it's always ready to rise to the occasion and to get the work done and to get the job done and to take care of the thing that's in front of it. And so that's the beauty of this. It's very similar to what you see in the outside world. You see the way we have birds that know exactly what to do. They know exactly when to build a new nest. They know exactly when to go and feed their kids. They know exactly when to hide because they know that a storm's coming in. The storm knows when to come in too, because the atmosphere is charged and there's no way they're going to hold out. So the sky explodes. Then it waters the earth, and then the earth starts steaming and pushing the water back up. And so it's a beautiful process, and it's a process that goes on every day and night all over the world. And it's the thing that continues life forward on the planet. It gives this planet its special charm, its special power, and its sensual capacity to nourish us day and night, where nothing else can do that. The planet is made for that, and it's a miracle that we have a planet like this, because the other planets are not this way. So maybe if you're another species, you might be able to do fairly well on another planet, but if you're a human being, this is the only planet you can live on, really. So it would be wise for us to take good care of it, and so that we don't run out of a backyard to walk around in. And now I know I'm fortunate to have a 1,200 acre backyard and then have another 50,000 acres right next door that I can walk into if I want to. And so that's why we live here in the jungle. We live here because here we can do natural healing at a very high, potent level. And we can do it beautifully, and we can have a good time at it, and we can have a high quality of life from what we think is a high quality of life. Sure, sometimes I miss the sushi bars and the highways and the ski slopes and the race cars and all that stuff, but it's a trade-off for something that's much better. I love living here in the Amazon without having a car or highway anywhere nearby, so we have really clean air. We have really clean water, and we have really clean people around us too. People don't get all covered with grease and soot from working on the cars all the time. And so it's just another ambiance. It's a completely different culture, and it's a completely different mindset that lives in the country, particularly in the Amazon country, because here the people are beautiful, the people are gentle, the people are relaxed. Why? Because they don't have any problems. They don't need a lot of clothes to stay warm. They don't need a lot of food, because they can just go fish it out of the river, or they can pick it off the tree. So it's a very, very low tension environment, and it creates a certain kind of personality. When you go to the mountains, the people have to harvest the potatoes. They have to put them in storage, because there's a time of year when they can't go out and harvest potatoes because everything's frozen. And so it's just a completely different personality that comes from that. And so that's why it's so pleasant and so sensual and so relaxed to live here, because the people don't have a lot of worries. So now we have this all set up. It's all ready to go, and the only thing we have to do to it, to put it on the fire, is it has to be blessed. Now, the tobacco has always been a very sacred plant and a sacred substance that's used to call the spirits in. Okay, the indigenous people always use it to call in the spirits. Does anybody have a cigarette lighter by chance? Inside the door? Yes. And so the people, the Indian people, when the heads of the tribes up in Arizona and Oklahoma and South Dakota and so on will get together and they decide how they're going to fight the white people and how they're going to hunt the buffaloes this year. They'll sit around in a circle and they'll pass tobacco pipe around so that they're all on the same wavelength and so that they're all thinking in the same way and they come to a consensus and they decide what to do. Now, here we use tobacco in a similar way. At the beginning of the ceremony, you'll notice that Jose blesses the 4 directions, like so, calling in spirits from all 4 directions, and then he goes around and he blows smoke on the walls, because that's a parameter, a signal to the spirit world that we're working here, and only compatible spirits that are working with us are allowed in, and the rest of them better stay out because we're working here, and that's it. Then he blows smoke on my head, and he blows smoke on Rosanna's head. And so it's a signal to the spirits that that's what's going on. And it brings them in, and they listen, and they follow our lead. And so, but the other thing that we have to do is we have to bring the spirit into the ayahuasca before we cook it, because I'm the one that's going to serve this ayahuasca, and I'm going to blow on it once again before I serve it, as you see me blow on it every night before I serve your cup. And so what I do is I put the intention on the ayahuasca. Now the ayahuasca can do many things. What we use it for is healing, liberation, and to bring abundance and strength and beauty into our lives. And we use it to bring us completely into our own power and our individuality. And so that's the focus of this ayahuasca. And so I'm going to do a prayer over it now, and so it will be advised to what our intentions are. But I better light it again. Let me see it up. So, an example, for instance, of another possible use of the ayahuasca is one thing that's very often done amongst the Indian tribes and so on, because they use it as a weapon or as a divination tool that allows them to correct imbalances that they see in their lives. For instance, if they have enemies, they'll use it to balance out the situation. In other words, giving them power over their enemies and so on. But we don't use it. That's what we call red magic. In other words, manipulating the outside world for your purposes. Now, it can be used that way, and often I encountered that very often with the Pueblo tribes and with the Navajo tribes and with the Comanches and the Sioux and so on, because when conquistadors came in to conquer this continent and to take it over, they took it over pretty effectively, except they weren't able to take over the magic because they didn't understand the magic. What they did was they changed the names. They changed the name of Ayauma, which is the cactus, into San Pedro. So they Christianized the power plants. They meshed them, but they didn't understand the use of them, and they didn't understand the subtleties that the shamans understood. So they missed a big piece of the main knowledge. And so since that was the only stone that they didn't turn over because they didn't think it was an important stone, they didn't turn it over. That was the one that went on and made them all crazy and scared all the time when they had plantations and they were trying to use people as slaves and so on. They were at a disadvantage because they thought they were always getting sick because they were witched. And so they're getting witched. And so everybody thinks they get witched. Okay, well, so it's a psychosis that's applied. And it's done on a spiritual level. And it's done on a psychological level. And so we, on the other hand, we're white healers. We're white magic healers, in other words. We only deal with healing. We only liberate and correct and bring equilibrium and balance back into people's lives so that they can become empowered to be themselves, to be happy, and to be strong, and to be very definitely 100% in their own bodies and their own minds, and feel good about it. Good morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, sir?
Doing great. So, basically, that's what you came here for, was to experience the mystery and the power of the Amazon, of Refugio de Plano, but most of all, the power of the ayahuasca medicine. And ayahuasca medicine is going to be an enormous ally to you all your lives, and you're going to get an enormous gift from it. It's going to open up a lot of doors for you, and you're going to become much stronger, much clearer, and much more intelligent. It will correct the damage that's been done to your system by being too tense, by taking too many drugs, and by living a lifestyle that's basically not as healthy as it should be. It cleans out toxins, it cleans out imbalances, and it does it in a very short time. In other words, you're not taking a medication for 20 years. You're going through a rebooting process that completely reprogramming your system, and it's done within maybe 20 to 40 days. So it happens quickly, it happens well, because our bodies are transformable. Our bodies are correctable. Both our spirits, our hearts, and our physical bodies, they react very directly and very well to this. This is the mother of all medicines, and this is the medicine that opens up the doors for all the other medicines to come in and have a dramatic effect. And because this takes away the psychosomatic blockages. People are sick because they have a vested reason to be sick. It makes them feel good because people have to take care of them. And they don't have to be responsible because they're sick. They're crazy. If they're crazy, nobody asks them anything else. But when they're better, they've got to take charge again, and that's really uncomfortable. So why do they stay sick? Well, because it's a lot easier. You get handouts, you get free food, and you get all kinds of sympathy and stuff. But if you're all right, They don't give you any sympathy. I give you nothing for free. They tell you, go work for it. And then you realize, oh God, it's much better to work for it than to get it for free, because it's, you know, it's just better that way. You know, you don't have to constantly be watching out for what, you know, who's going to come by and charge the bill. And so it's much better to be independent. But when you're independent, you've got to decide to be that way. And so you pull that in, and the next thing you know, you're standing on your feet and you're living your life in a way that you can feel proud, and in a way that you can really give the gift that you have to the people who depend on you, who need help. Now we've got 4 cookings in there that haven't been touched yet. So we have a pretty good supply on hand, and we always have a good supply on hand. And it's always very strong, pure, perfect ayahuasca. We've got it down to a science. We've got it figured out so that we get it just right every time. And that's what's so beautiful about being experienced and having a direct relationship with your plants. And having are you calling me or something?
I was asking a question when the time was right.
Okay.
Can I just ask really quickly? For instance, this batch here, is it going to be very similar to, for instance, the last one we had, or is there going to be a noticeable difference from one batch to another?
Well, there's different kinds of ayahuasca. Okay, there's lightning ayahuasca. There's Yanapuma ayahuasca. There's Cielo ayahuasca. Cielo ayahuasca is sky ayahuasca. It has a tendency to bring brighter visions. The Relampago ayahuasca is lightning ayahuasca, which means it has more electricity in it. It is more wired. Mm-hmm. Now the Yanapuma ayahuasca is a black, dark ayahuasca that goes into the intestines and purges everything out. Okay? And so the 3 different kinds of ayahuasca will have a slightly different effect. But usually what we do is we mix the Relampago with the Cielo. And that's what this is. It's a mix of the 2. Okay? So it's lightning with sky. And the Chacruna, a very large amount. Okay? So that's the way we do it. And so we come up with pretty much the same potency. But we try it first because we don't know exactly how strong it's going to be. And if we're going to dose you just right, we've got to try it first, because if it's not quite strong, if it has to be reduced 20% more, it'll make a big difference in how it impacts you. So we always use ayahuasca that's time tested and that we've already drunk. And so that's what's going on here. And so it's going to be pretty much the same, Mark. It's going to be pretty much the same potency, the same density. We have to do that because we want to serve everybody within that small shot glass, okay? And you've got the full range there. You can go all the way from here, homeopathic dosage, up to a full cup. And that pretty much covers all the bases. So, does anybody else have a question? Well, if one comes up later, you know, we'll talk about it tonight when we're in the ceremonial house. All right, thanks. You guys have a wonderful day. See you later.